Sean, good evening.
Good evening, Bern.
So you are in Ukraine. You've had a busy time and some amazing stuff. So we're very eager to hear what you've been up to, Sean.
Well, the short version is been to Superhumans Lviv, 84 amputees in various stages of recovery, met some absolutely inspirational characters, £20,000 for a prosthetic leg, eye-watering, but the problem is far bigger than Ukraine can deal with. They desperately need our help.
And did you manage to talk to the guys themselves?
Yeah, I spoke to, through an interpreter. Very fortunately, had one of the junior doctors that was there, spoke very good English. And guys like Nazar, who lost both his legs in the first days of the war, was in a wheelchair still. He'd had some problems with his stump. The bottom of his prosthetic was causing bruising. So he was in there to get it refitted. I hadn't realized that these prosthetics, they often don't sit on the bone. They actually wrap around the thigh. But of course, your thigh gets smaller. They need to be refitted. And he was there being refitted. He started off glum. When we talked about my own experiences, he talked about his. He was laughing, guffawing at the end of it. Thoroughly inspirational to talk to some of the people who were actually there.
And did you get a sense for how long from injury through to the individual getting into some semblance of, for that person, what would be their next life, what we might loosely call normality? How long actually would that be?
We measure it in months, almost years, not days. I mean, part of the problem though, Bern, I hadn't realized was they one of the big issues is tourniquet issues, because the front line, it's so difficult to get these people back. They've got tourniquets on to try and deal with the immediate injury. As you probably know, that's about a 15-minute max treatment. Some of these tourniquets have been on there for 2 days. And of course, that damages all sorts of tissue. The other thing I hadn't realized was obviously the medics are doing the best they can on the front line. But quite frankly, they're not working in very, very antiseptic conditions. It's really difficult to stop infections. And a third of the people going to back to Ukraine's hospitals have blood injuries or whatever because they've just got infections. And the final one is, despite the surgeons chopping off the limbs, when they actually get to a specialist unit, they've not been chopped off the way that they need to be chopped off in order to last. So Superhumans have to once again go in there and make another operation to get them sorted. Incredibly heartbreaking to hear their stories. I mean, some of the facial reconstruction they're doing, that she had one lady who'd had 10 different reconstructions before she finally got to Superhumans, and they frankly looked at it and said, this is a DIY bodge job. We're going to have to start again. Just imagine if you've gone through all of that and now you have to start again. But the facilities at Superhumans, it's a charity, it's brand new, state-of-the-art equipment, and boy, are they doing an amazing job. But it's probably only 1,000th of the total challenges that Ukraine face at the moment. It's a tiny fraction.
And you've got to be there. You just cannot explain it to somebody. You've actually got to be there to witness it, haven't you?
You have. I found it quite emotional, to be brutally honest. Having had the experience of Afghanistan and seen, what happened to our soldiers in that position. When you see these guys and girls, some of them were playing ping pong. There was a one-legged guy playing ping pong with a one-armed bloke, and there's some dark humor about it. And when I was there, one of the guys on 2 prosthetic legs, trying to get through the door, took a misstep, collapsed, legs, arms everywhere. And actually, I felt shocked. The whole place erupted in laughter because this guy, it's 120 times he's fallen over. And just that banter, he got himself up, he laughed, put his thumbs up, got on his way again. And I honestly found it incredibly inspirational. These people are there not to feel sorry for themselves, but actually find a way that they can make this work. And our contributions, because it's physically, they've got to be repaired. They've then got to get these prosthetics. Some of them are really expensive. And thirdly, the psychological rehabilitation is immense. Many of them have lost part of their body. They've lost a definition of themselves. They need help. Yeah. And that is really important as well.
Yeah. And actually they have to fall over. I went to speak. I was asked to speak at a prize giving at Wentworth in UK from those who've been injured in Afghanistan, and there was 100 of them in the room, 120 in the room, and they invited some celebrities as well. Not me, obviously, but I did speak. And I sat next to a guy who was sitting down was my height. I think I might have told you this story before, but he said, "Would you mind taking me to the loo?" And when he stood up, he was 5 foot tall instead of the 6 foot he should have been, because he was on what they call stubbies, which for in England is the first stage. It's a stiff wooden leg, and it's the first stage through that journey of getting to the final prosthetic that you've just described. And he described falling over lots. It's not the falling over, of course, it's the getting up again.
And that's the inspirational bit, Bern, to be honest. I mean, I tend to think of myself as sort of half full sort of person, but my goodness, you know, these guys, they've had a pretty shitty set of cards dealt their way, and somehow they've got to make the best of it. The one guy I spoke to, that Nazar, when he lost both his legs the first few days of the war, he said his wife cried solidly for 3 days. He said it was heartbreaking. She then found whatever inner strength, and from there she became his rock. And they need that. They need something, not just feeling sorry for themselves, but something to actually get them through the challenges, to find what they can do, not what they can't do. And boy, this centre is fantastic. You know, they need help, they need money, because the scale of the challenge is immense.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, those thousands, those tens of thousands, maybe if you include all the people who've been affected by it, the hundreds, the many hundreds of thousands, that strength of character, that resolve is going to be needed in spades when this country comes to rebuild itself.
You're absolutely right. And it's heartbreaking to see. And actually, it's quite humbling when you've been there, because I left there. I had to get my next stage of the journey, which was go to the bus station in Lviv. I made my way there. I've been carrying 3 really heavy bags full of kit that I was delivering to Kiev. And when I got to the bus station, it was chucking it down with rain. And I found myself having to lug these heavy bags through the rain for about half a mile to get to actually where the bus station was. Arrived there, 8 o'clock at night, dripping, tired, but actually just looking back and going, I have nothing to complain about. Absolutely nothing compared to what these guys are going through. And I think I found that one of the most humbling parts of it. It was quite emotional watching these guys. When you're sat in a group of them, everybody's lost 1, 2, or 3 limbs, and they're just making the best of it. And they need some help, but my goodness, they deserve it.
Well, thank you, Sean. And I know you've got a pretty action-packed day in Kiev. So I think for now, we're going to say cheerio to Lviv. Thank you for sharing what must have been an amazing experience for you.
Always a pleasure, Ben. Chat tomorrow.